Hello my friends and welcome. Today's story is about how a supposedly neutral Ireland cooperated with the British against Germany during World War II. With the Battle of Britain about to begin following the fall of France, the arrival of two German spies on the Dingle Peninsula within a fortnight of each other, in June 1940, sparked enormous security concerns. Walter Simon was seen coming ashore not far from Dingle, and burying his radio transmitter on a beach in the early morning of June 13, 1940. He then walked toward Dingle on a railway line and asked some people what time the next train was due. It was 14 years since the last passenger train had run on the line. Arriving in Dingle, around 7 a.m., he asked Michael Milligan the time of the next bus for Tralee. As the bus did not leave until 9 a.m., Milligan invited him for a drink in a local pub, where Simon consumed 3 glasses of whiskey and bought a full bottle of the stuff. On the bus, he proceeded to drink from the bottle, and even offered the whiskey to other passengers. He was clearly drunk when the bus dropped him at the railway station in Tralee. He immediately attracted the attention of 2 Garda detectives, James Colley and Bill Walsh. They were staking out the station, as part of a widespread search of the Dingle Peninsula for the mysterious stranger. The detectives were suspicious, seeing sand on Simon's shoes. When he boarded the train for Dublin, they accompanied him and engaged him in conversation. He said he had been visiting his sister-in-law in Inniscowl, but got into an argument with her during the night and had decided to return to his family in Dublin. One of the detectives telephoned Garda headquarters during a scheduled stop to warn of their suspicions. As a result, Simon was arrested on stepping off the train at Kingsbridge. Simon was convicted of illegal entry and sentenced to 3 years in jail at the Central Criminal Court on July 8, 1940. Another spy dropped off from a U-boat was Willie Pretz, who came ashore near Minard, 12 days after Simon. He managed to remain at large until the late summer. During that time, he transmitted some weather messages to Germany. Although foreigners usually attracted attention in Ireland, Pretz, 34, was not initially suspected, because he was married to an Irish woman. He had married Sarah Reynolds of Chewham in 1935, and had visited the Reynolds family in 1937 and again in 1938. At the start of the war, he fled to Ireland from England. The Reynolds family vouched that Pretz had returned to Ireland before the outbreak of the war, so he was allowed to remain. He slipped out of the country in December 1939 and managed to return to Germany, where he joined the Abwehr, which was Germany's military intelligence arm. After being trained in the use of radio equipment, Pretz returned to Ireland by U-boat on June 25, 1940, with the aim of sending weather information. He buried his radio transmitter on the beach near Minard after landing, and made his way to Dublin. He returned to recover the transmitter a couple of weeks later, and began transmitting weather data to Germany upon his return to Dublin. He lived in a flat at 32 Westland Row. He did not bother to buy any weather instruments, but merely took note of barometer readings in shop windows. He seemed more interested in partying than anything else. He did not endear himself to his wife's family when he got her teenage sister Annie into trouble. He was arrested after being caught transmitting news back to Germany. There were frequent reports coming about submarine bases on the west coast of Ireland. There was no truth to any of this, or to a subsequent MI6 report on January 12, 1940, of a supposed U-boat base near the mouth of the Doonbeg River in Clare. The report said, "A submarine comes in 3 times a week and is camouflaged with a canvas screen." Bob Davis, an American author, wrote The Dingle War, a comic novel about a fictional character who supposedly supplied Irish hams, sweaters, and whiskey to the crews of U-boats that supposedly called regularly at Dingle during the war. The fanciful rumors were fueled by the landings of Simon and Pretz in June 1940. A Daily Mail correspondent reported that he heard stories in the remote bogs of Kerry about local fraternization with U-boat crews that would make any Briton's hair stand on end. The reporter said, he was shown a pub in Dingle where a U-boat captain proposed a toast to the downfall of John Bull. In another pub, a man told him that a U-boat called regularly at a jetty on one of the islands to purchase fresh eggs and vegetables. "Come on, Maggie," the submarine commander used to shout, "hurry up with those cabbages." The gullible journalist may have been paying for drink for his local informants, and the more he bought, the more exotic the stories became. There was further alarm on September 27, 1940, when Timothy O'Shea and Timothy Crean, on lookout duty at Ardroe, reported that they saw a man coming ashore from a boat near Inch Strand. At 1 a.m., a thorough search of the peninsula from Dingle Bay to Tralee was carried out on the 29th by 250 military, accompanied by the Gardaí and local security forces, said Garda Superintendent Michael O'Leary of Dingle. But no trace of the man that was said to have to come ashore was found. O'Leary believed the mystery man was either Michael Kennedy or his brother John, who were out snaring rabbits on Inch Island that night. They were actually being interviewed by a Garda sergeant as they were going home with their catch at 6:30 in the morning. After investigating the U-boat stories for his book, In Time of War, Robert Fisk wrote that Hugh Wren, an official coast watcher who had served at various posts, from Ballybunion to Dingle, dismissed the bulk of the U-boat stories. Most of the submarines, he said, had been seen in pubs. In the summer of 1940, Herman Gortz parachuted into the small village of Balliver, County Meath. The mission was called Operation Manaw, and was in an effort to gather information about the British. He moved in with former IRA leader Jim O'Donovan. His mission was to act as a liaison officer with the IRA and enlist their assistance during a potential German occupation of Britain. However, he soon decided that the IRA was too unreliable. On landing, he lost the transmitter he had parachuted with. Gortz, attired in a Luftwaffe uniform, then walked to Dublin. He was not apprehended despite calling into a Garda barracks in County Wicklow, asking for directions to Dublin. In Dublin, Gortz stayed at a safe house at 245 Templeogue Road, in Templeogue, and other properties during 19 months at liberty. These include houses in Spencer Villa, Glenagree, Charlemont Avenue, Dunleary, Nerino Road, Dalkey, Winton Avenue, Rathmines, and a period house in Shankill, in Dublin. He stayed for a month at Britters Bay, and more briefly at Lara Castle Glendalough. In May 1940, the Gardaí raided the home of an IRA member of German descent, Stephen Carroll Held, who had been working with Gortz at his house at Blackheath Park, Clontarf. They confiscated a parachute, papers, Gortz's World War I medals, and a number of documents about the defence infrastructure of Ireland. The papers they took included files on possible military targets in Ireland, such as airfields and harbours, as well as details of Plan Kathleen, an IRA plan for the invasion of Northern Ireland with the support of the Nazi military. Held had brought this plan to Germany prior to Gortz's departure, but his superiors had dismissed it as unfeasible. Gortz went into hiding, staying with sympathizers in the Wicklow area, and purposefully avoided contact with IRA safe houses. He remained at large for 18 months. When IRA member Pierce Paul Kelly visited Gortz's hiding place in Dublin in November 1941, police arrested them both. Gortz was interned in Mountjoy Prison in Custom Barracks, Athlone, until release at the end of the war. He then lived in Glenagarry and became secretary of the Save the German Children Society. He was re-arrested the following year and served with a deportation order by the Minister for Justice. To prevent deportation, he claimed to have been in the SS rather than a lieutenant in the Luftwaffe. This claim was disproved by Irish Military Intelligence, G2. On Friday, the 23rd of May 1947, he arrived at the aliens' office in Dublin Castle at 9:50 a.m., and was told he was being deported to Germany the next day. Although it had been stated to him that the Irish government had specifically requested that he not be handed over to the Soviets, he committed suicide. The papers reported that he stared disbelievingly at the detective officers. Then suddenly, he took his hand from his trouser pocket, swiftly removed his pipe from between his lips, and slipped a small glass vial into his mouth. One of the police officers sprang at Gortz as he crunched the glass with his teeth. The officer got his hands around Gortz's neck but failed to prevent most of the poison, believed to be prussic acid, from passing down his throat. Within a few seconds, Gortz collapsed. He was driven to Mercer's Hospital and died there shortly after arrival. Gortz was buried 3 days later in a Dublin cemetery, and his funeral was attended by Dan Breen. In 1974 his remains were transferred to the German military cemetery at Glencree, in County Wicklow. Between February 1940 and December 1943, some 12 German agents were sent to Ireland. They were all arrested and interned. 3 of them were actually Irish who fooled the Germans into smuggling them into Ireland for espionage. In fact, they just wanted to get home from wartime Europe, where they had been stranded. And that, my friends, is another of my tales from Ireland's twisted history. Thank you for watching. Goodbye for now.